The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
Okay, let's go.
Happy Thursday, everybody, December 21st. Okay, you know what? Today I'm going to start off doing something a little bit different. We're mixing it up. We're mixing it up here at the Deep Shallow Dive. But I'm actually going to start trying to incorporate some more like current event news stories and just kind of get you up to speed on a top line basis. Again, like I said way many episodes ago, I'm definitely not trying to morph into like a daily news program or anything like that. Obviously, the entire goal of Deep Shallow Dive is to kind of go into, more concentrated topics versus everything. But I do think it kind of makes some sense to give some top line. So let me share a couple things that I found of interest over the past couple days. First of all, Harvard, the University of Harvard, or Harvard University, I think it's called, it sees a 17% drop in applications compared to last year. Obviously, if you've been paying attention to what's going on at really a lot of colleges across America, let alone the Ivy Leagues, especially as it relates to the students, I guess, advocating for human rights. Now, obviously, it's getting positioned differently by really the right. The Republican side of things are positioning it more as they're advocating for like terrorism, which I don't really think they are. I think, like I've talked about in a couple episodes ago, these kids, they don't have history and they're calling balls and strikes. And so, they're advocating for what they think is right versus wrong. But that is interesting that Harvard has seen a 17% drop in applications versus last year. Our boy Elon Musk is facing an EU probe into disinformation on X. Now, I'm sure there's plenty of disinformation on X. Honestly, I continue not to really enjoy that platform. I really do find it toxic. I can't say I spend a lot of time on X. I spend very minimal time. I have some automations set up to share Deep Shallow Dive content, but I can't say I really get engaged on X. Okay, this one's interesting. Vice President Kamala Harris. By the way, there's a lot of controversy in how she pronounces her name, and I think it is appropriate to pronounce it correctly considering she's the vice president. And so I looked it up, and here's the easiest way to remember it. Comma, as in the punctuation mark, comma, la. So it's not Kamala, which I think I've said that a few times, but it's Kamala. So if you think about it like that, I'm telling you, it works. Just whenever you go to say her name, just think comma, and then you'll remember that it's Kamala. And by the way, I think a lot of people mispronounced it because now that I think about it, I remember Gavin Newsom kind of chastising Ron DeSantis in their goofy debate about DeSantis mispronouncing it during the debate. I remember hearing that, and I was like, okay, God, I feel better that the fact that DeSantis mispronounced it. But you know what? We should all know how to pronounce her name, whether you like it or not. She's the Vice President of the United States. I believe that position commands a level of respect that it deserves. And so, Kamala. So Kamala Harris is going on a nationwide abortion tour in 2024. That ought to be interesting. She's going to be advocating for abortion rights in early 2024. And you know what? That makes sense because that is going to be one of the major topics in the election next year for sure. I think that's going to be a game changer. So that makes sense to me. Okay, this one is pretty interesting. British Petroleum, BP, and Evergreen. Evergreen is the largest shipping company in the world. They have halted all ships heading to the Red Sea, and this has to do with all the controversy that's taking place with the Yemeni Houthis, who are wreaking absolute havoc with any ship that has anything to do with Israel going through the Red Sea, up the Suez Canal, and we are going to dive into the Suez Canal here soon. But I thought that was interesting that BP and Evergreen have halted all ships going into the Red Sea because of these Houthi attacks. And so this is going to be interesting. The U.S., I don't think they'll put up with that. I really don't. Okay, here's a big one. The state of Colorado ruled that Donald Trump cannot appear on the 2024 primary ballot. That was all over the news the past 2 days. I will say Vivek Ramaswamy came out and said he's going to take his name off the Colorado ballot unless they rescind that. And he did a call to arms to the rest of the candidates, Chris Christie, Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, and it looks like I feel like they were pressured to do it because Vivek kind of threw the gauntlet out. But it does look like the entire Republican Party might take their, I don't even know how this works, actually. I really didn't look into it that much, but they might take the Republican Party off the ticket in Colorado. So I guess that's a definite win for the Democrats, but it could, who knows, maybe my prediction that they all drop out and get behind Trump. Oh my God, if that comes true, I'm going to be pretty proud of myself. All right, let's see what else. This Houthi attack, the U.S. responded in the Red Sea, and it looks like they've sent out a 10-nation naval task force. I don't know exactly what that means, but I don't see them putting up with this for very long. All right, here's a big news story, although it's really not that big, but it plays into something I talked about previously. So a New York federal judge has mandated that a vast amount of court documents relating to Jeffrey Epstein be unsealed as early as possibly January 2024. And that means over 180 names associated with Epstein could be unsealed. Now, it's not clear what that means. Are they people that, visited Epstein Island and flew on the Lolita Express, or are they business associates? It doesn't really say too much, but I will say if your name comes up in those documents, you're going to have a bad time. That is just not good to have your name in those documents. So it's going to be interesting, but I will say I feel like this is, if you remember in a previous episode, I don't think the big names are going to come out, but I do think the sacrificial lamb names are going to come out. And for some reason, I feel like this is the setup for that. So, all right. So this is pretty wild. I'm going to play for you a clip from former President Obama where he was speaking at Stanford on behalf of the Obama Foundation. And a couple things about this. This clip was from a few months back. And then I'm not going to talk about the movie I mentioned the movie on Netflix, Leave the World Behind with Julia Roberts. It continues to get a lot of crazy chatter going on. And I'll see if I can find the clip in the movie that I feel like now is based on this.
Understand, it's not necessary for people to believe disinformation in order to weaken democratic institutions. You just have to flood a country's public square with enough raw sewage. You just have to raise enough questions, spread enough dirt, plant enough conspiracy theorizing that citizens no longer know what to believe. Once they lose trust in their leaders, in mainstream media, in political institutions, in each other, in the possibility of truth, the game's won.
All right, seriously. I normally don't swear, but this shit is wild. It really is. So, gosh, I'm going to look for other speeches. I know there's one from Klaus Schwab, the tyrannical leader of the World Economic Forum. I'll find that. But, I mean, that's Obama talking. And that was like a couple months ago. And he's the executive producer of this film. And now listen to one of the main lines delivered in this film. This is Mahershala Ali talking to Ethan Hawke in the car. Both very good actors, by the way. Listen to this.
I didn't think we'd actually let something like this happen. I thought we were smarter than that. What happened? Because my primary client works in the defense sector, I spent a lot of time studying the cost-benefit analysis of military campaigns. There was one program in particular that terrified my client the most. A simple 3-stage maneuver that could topple a country's government from within. First stage was isolation. Disable their communication and transportation. Make the target as deaf, dumb, and paralyzed as possible, setting them up for the second stage. Synchronized chaos. Terrorize them with covert attacks and misinformation. Overwhelming their defense capabilities, leaving their weapon systems vulnerable to extremists in their own military. Without a clear enemy or motive, people would start turning on each other. Done successfully, the third stage would happen on its own. What's the third stage? A coup d'etat. Civil war. Collapse. This program was considered the most cost-effective way to destabilize a country. Because if the target nation was dysfunctional enough, it would, in essence, do the work for you.
Understand, it's not necessary for people to believe disinformation in order to weaken democratic institutions. You just have to flood a country's public square with enough raw sewage. You just have to raise enough questions, spread enough dirt, plant enough conspiracy theorizing that citizens no longer know what to believe. Once they lose trust in their leaders, in mainstream media, in political institutions, in each other, in the possibility of truth, the game's won.
All right, dude. No bueno. No bueno. Ray D does not like any of that. All right, I played that Obama clip again in its entirety after the segment from the movie because I think it really drives home the point. I really do believe in repetition being the mother of all learning, by the way. I do like to repeat things, including myself. But anyway, I mean, that is interesting stuff. It really is. And like, he's the executive producer of this movie. I mean, come on. Come on. How is that not weird? Like, how is he not thinking, oh, 3 months ago, I went to Stanford and I delivered that speech on behalf of the Obama Foundation, which that speech in and of itself was weird enough. And oh, by the way, now on Netflix, you've got a movie that's pretty much talking about what I said in that speech. Oh, and by the way, I'm the executive producer of that movie. Bro, I'm telling you, predictive programming, I mean, you don't have to believe it. That's totally fine. That really is. Actually, I wish I didn't believe it, but again, like we've talked, just have it on your radar. I don't know. Have your spidey senses maybe a little sharpened to this stuff, you know? Think about this stuff a little bit because I'm telling you, 2024 is going to get wild. It's going to get wild. I think there's going to be some crazy stuff. All right, gosh. You know, I was going to do the Suez Canal stuff today, but I'm going to hold off on the Suez Canal. But I did want to talk about a couple other things, starting with this.
We really do need to ban TikTok once and for all. And let me tell you why. For every 30 minutes that someone watches TikTok, every day, they become 17% more anti-Semitic, more pro-Hamas based on doing that. We now know that 50% of adults 18 to 25 think that Hamas was warranted in what they did with Israel. That's a problem.
I don't even know what to say about that. She said that during the debate. For every 30 minutes that somebody watches TikTok, they become 17% more anti-Semitic. I love that it's 30 minutes and 17%. Oh my God. Seriously, you know what? I gotta start to draw a red line on this stuff. This is just absurd. It's absolutely absurd. The rhetoric is absurd. I'm telling you, it is completely absurd. But I will say the reason I played that was, that also is along the lines of, just, I don't know if I'd call that predictive programming, but they're definitely trying to shape a narrative, and they're going after the 18 to 25-year-olds, which, by the way, the 18 to 25-year-olds are the ones that, in the situation in Gaza, they're the ones, they're really standing up for human rights. They absolutely are. I had a really couple good chats with a couple friends of mine who kind of were thinking the opposite. And then I said, well, have you seen what they're posting on TikTok? No, I don't look at TikTok. I said, okay, well, I'm not going to continue this conversation until you do. So my one buddy, he's like, all right, give me an hour. And he's like, well, what should I look for? So I told him exactly what to look for. I told him exactly what to search. He did. He called me back and he's like, Jesus, dude, you're totally right. Wow, these kids are legit. Like, they are absolutely, he's like, I was blown away at the facts that they were quoting and the data and the research and how well articulated they were and all that. So, again, all this stuff, I guess at the end of the day, just, be a little more aware maybe. Like I said earlier, maybe just have your spidey senses awake a little more, and then, decide what you think about it. I mean, seriously, some people just don't care, and that's totally cool. That really is. Gosh, it completely is. But if you are somebody that, really, I don't know, I guess just wants to be a little more in tune with the craziness that's taking place. I mean, gosh, I literally cannot remember what normal feels like anymore. I really can't. God, the only time I remember what normal feels like is when I go back and I get memories from either Facebook or Google Photos or something that pop up on my phone, and it takes me back to like when my niece and nephew were 3 and 4, and then I look back, I'm like, oh my God, that was normal back then. Those were normal times. We are no longer living in those normal times. I mean, it feels like every day, every week, there's something that comes up that again stirs the pot, stirs the pot. All right, man, I got derailed this episode. This freaking predictive programming. Damn you, Obama. No, I'm just kidding. By the way, he really is an excellent public speaker. I don't care what you think of the guy. I know a lot of people love him. A lot of people do not like him. He is an excellent public speaker, and I've learned so much watching him speak. I've tried to implement pauses. I don't do it too much on the podcast because then that's just like dead air. No need to put you guys through that. But I will say, when I do speak out in public and when I have meetings, I definitely I channel Obama a little bit because I think he's an excellent speaker. I really do. All right, I'm going to end with this clip. Wow, this is pretty nutty. I found a clip from Benjamin Netanyahu in 1978. Think about that. And again, this just talks to the concept of the two-state solution, which we covered in episode 75.
Do the Palestinians have a right to a separate state?
Well,
Mr. John has been talking about human rights.
well, I think that no, I don't think they do, but
Well, there you have it. That was him in 1978, and bro is consistent. I'll give him that because he's pretty much saying the same thing now. All right, you know what? Today was a little bit of a hodgepodge. I don't know if I liked it. I don't know. Tell me if you liked it. Let me know, seriously, if you liked, I guess, kind of covering a variety of topics, maybe the current affairs stuff at the beginning. Let me know if you liked that, if you want me to continue to, maybe talk about things in the news from the day before in the first couple minutes of every episode, or any other feedback. But anyway, again, overall, let's continue to dive in to what's going on, because there's a lot going on. All right, everybody, enjoy your day. Call a spade a spade.
This episode was brought to you by Boost Liquid Vitamins. Wake up, take your Boost, start your day. Drink your vitamins, build your immune system with Boost. Available on Boost.com.